We're going without you, Randy. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Winton Woods City School District Board meeting. It is Monday, February 27th, 6:30 p.m. I'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order. If everyone could please turn your electronic devices to vibrate or silent, that would be greatly appreciated. And everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our first item this evening is our district honors, recognitions, gifts. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Roll call first, Randy.
Oh, Dr. Johnson,
Present.
Mrs. Kuhn,
Here.
Mrs. Ruggles,
Here.
Mr. Birdie, here, Mrs. Miranda.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Seymour, and thank you, Dr. Johnson, for that reminder. Now we will move into the District Honors Recognitions Awards. Mr. Superintendent, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Julia Brown? Not here yet. All right, we'll wait. We'll come back. Might sneak in on us. Let's go to the next person. The Kiwanis Student of the Month, K. Ron Patton. I knew that was you. I could tell. I could tell. All right. We're going to read something about you. Okay. So stand up here and then you're going to say something great about yourself. Congratulations to K. Ron Patton for being selected Student of the Month, Kiwanis Student of the Month. K. Ron is a 10th grader in the Academy of Global Studies. K. Ron was selected for Student of the Month because he demonstrates the characteristics of a very good scholar with great character. When you see K. Ron in class or in the hallways, he always has a smile and is engaged in conversation with either students or teachers. He is a willing worker. When given a task, he follows that task through the end. I recently asked K. Ron to serve as a buddy to a new student who had only been in the country for 45 days. There was obviously a language barrier, but that did not hinder K. Ron. His job was to leave his class about 3 minutes early, go to the new student's classes, and make sure he and the new student were at the next assigned class on time. Please understand that neither shared any of the same classes. K. Ron was to only perform this task for one day. He wanted to make sure the new student was comfortable with the school, so K. Ron continued his touring guide position for 3 days. Way to go. Yeah. K. Ron's teachers say that he is always polite in the classroom. He is a natural-born leader. He sees the goal and is able to clearly communicate his ideas to his peers. He is a hard worker and gets assignments done on time. K. Ron is serious about being a great leader and communicator for the Model UN project. He is an awesome student who works hard and does not expect any recognition. Currently, K. Ron's extracurricular activities involve being a member of student council and playing on the newly formed lacrosse team. Oh, lacrosse. Way to go.
Thank you.
You're going to make me proud. Yes, sir. Thank you. When asked what he does when he's not in school, K. Ron says he studies and sleeps. After those two tasks are complete, K. Ron says he is an avid video game player. He eventually would like to be an entrepreneur and have a video game business. However, being a marine biologist tops his list as a career option. K. Ron deserves this recognition due to his kindness, his willingness to put forth great effort, and for just being a pleasant and driven student. I'm honored to be a school counselor, Ms. Kim Goins. Ms. Goins, are you here? Why don't you come up too? All right. So that speech that you wrote.
Yes, sir.
No, him.
I didn't write anything, but there's only one thing that convinced my mind to do everything I did throughout the years. In the 2 years I've been in the Winton Woods District, there's this key word that I've been in my mind all this time. It's to try and do everything I can to be the best I can be.
Great. Fantastic. Absolutely. Awesome.
On behalf of the Green Hills Forest Park Kiwanis, I'm delighted to present you this certificate of achievement. Thank you. We gotta take a picture.
All right, we're gonna turn this way, guys. And Dad, you can come on up with us.
Yeah, good idea, yes.
Scoot back. Ms. Goins, come on back. All right, come back to these stairs. We have to stay.
Since I'm the tall one.
You got it, Mr.
Oh,
Barr?
I'm sorry.
Congratulations,
Thank
Dad.
You want to go to practice, so
Oh,
thank you. I appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all doing this for me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Okay. Jalea Brown. We've been waiting on you.
I'm gonna let the president of the Kiwanis Club do this, okay? So it's coming to you, just not like this.
Jalea Brown is the Kiwanis Student of the Month. I nominate Jalea Brown as Kiwanis Student of the Month. I do so because she is a strong young woman who has displayed leadership ability and a willingness to give back to her school community. Jalea is one of our senior cheerleaders, and as such, she is consistently striving to involve others and to build school spirit. I marvel at her enthusiasm, especially knowing some of the obstacles she has overcome in her life. She has displayed grit, strength, and rare maturity as she has overcome what life has thrown at her and refused to let the obstacles keep her from achieving her goals. I nominate Jalea and believe her to be an excellent example for our younger students. She is taking care of business in the classroom and has willingly given back to her community and her school and community, excuse me. For this, I nominate Jalea Brown as Student of the Month, John Beischel, Counselor for Families in the last names of A to K. How many of you have been to a basketball game? All right. Have you ever been to the game where one cheerleader from the opposing team can flip, and then usually nobody else can do it? Well, Winton Woods, all of them can do it, and it's just amazing. And then the other team, they only have 2 or 3, and they have to just kind of stand back. I taught them that. So, just want to let you know that I have other skills, and I just want to let you know that Jalea is one of my best students. No, I didn't teach her anything.
Yeah.
Yes. Family.
Family, come on up.
Family time.
Yeah, it's okay, we can fit everybody. Scoot back a little bit, take a couple steps back. There we go. Yeah. There we go.
Way to go. Whole family portrait. Yes.
Say something. What you want me to say?
Something great. No pressure.
Something great. I don't know. All right. Thank you, everyone. That's my speech. I didn't prepare for this.
All right. Is Sienna here? Sienna Bailey? No. Not yet. We'll wait. You may show up. Okay, Winton Woods now would like to recognize one of our incredible teachers, and Dr. Christopher Tate. He is a Skyline Teacher of the Month. Dr. Christopher Tate, a teacher in the Academy of Global Studies at Winton Woods High School, is always willing to embrace new and innovative styles of teaching. In his second year with the district, Dr. Tate teaches physical science and AP Physics 2 with project-based learning as his primary mode of instruction. Dr. Tate was chosen by the high school's administration as the Skyline Teacher of the Month. Dr. Tate has not only worked to collaborate with colleagues here at Winton Woods, but has also accepted the challenge to travel internationally and teach other educators how to better engage their students in the Winton Woods way. Princess Crenshaw, assistant principal at the high school, says Dr. Tate is a valuable member of the Warrior team and works to ensure that all students achieve their highest potential. So there are some criteria that you have to have in order to be nominated. So here are some of the attributes of Dr. Tate. Excellence in the classroom by using instructional practices that support higher academic achievement. Motivation by encouraging and motivating students to surpass their expectations both academically and socially. Leadership by having a positive attitude with students, parents, colleagues, and the community. Creativity and imagination by demonstrating creativity in teaching in a way that inspires students to learn. Dedication by showing excellent attendance, punctuality, and overall dependability. And finally, communication by communicating effectively to their classroom, parents, colleagues, and beyond. The Skyline Teacher of the Month Award is sponsored by the Forest Park Skyline, a business partner of Winton Woods City Schools. Teachers honored receive a $30 Skyline gift card. Thank you, Dr. Tate.
It's a little nerve-wracking as a 50-year-old to go to a new district, so it was a little scary last year, and with the leadership of Dr. Smith and Eric Martin, that really made things easy. And boy, when you leave your family after being somewhere for about 15 years, you think it's never going to be the same, but you come here and next thing you know, you got a new family and you got new friends, and it's really been nice. And thank you for this. It really makes me feel included. Thank you.
You know what? This is your only family. Thank you, sir. All right.
Sure.
He said you don't count anymore. Sure, yes.
Angles, good job.
Mr. Martin, I'd like for you to introduce the next person. This is not an award, but this is just a small presentation about an activity and a project.
Good evening, everyone. One of the things that we attempt to do as we transition to who we're going to be, as we kind of find our greatness as a school, we want to make sure that we instill in our young people the whole opportunity of giving back. One of the young ladies this evening would like to tell you a little bit about her capstone project. Jada, come on up and join me. This is also an opportunity for her to give back to the communities that are housed in our high school. So she's going to come up and tell you about her capstone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jada Edwards. For my senior capstone, I've chosen to focus on homeless youth. My plan is to host a sleep out to raise awareness. A sleep out is an overnight event that allows individuals to experience the difficulties that homeless youth face while raising money for at-risk youth. The sleep out includes taking a piece of cardboard and a sleeping bag into a parking lot, field, yard, or along a strip of sidewalk for a night. However, the sleep out is not about pretending to be homeless. The main goal is to show young people that you care enough to be uncomfortable for them for one night. My sleep out event is going to be held on March 17th through 18th on the football field. It'll be from 6:30 p.m. to 10 a.m. the next morning on Saturday. The event is open to all high school students, including AGS and New Tech Academy, teachers and administrators, and potentially board members. In terms of food, I will be doing a soup kitchen simulation so that it will be as realistic as possible. And finances, it'll be $3 upon entry at the sign-in table. And to raise money for the food, I'm doing $1 Jeans Day fundraisers at the high school, which will take place on March 10th. Thank you for your time.
All right. So Jada came to my office several weeks ago with her bodyguard, Mr. Martin. I wasn't bullied into the project, but I thought it was very exciting. So board members, the superintendent is going to be at that event. And I think you should be too. Don't you think they should be here?
Yes.
Okay. So look at each one of them eye to eye and say, I'll see you on March what?
17th.
March 17th. And the time?
6:30.
6:30 p.m.?
Yes.
Until?
10 a.m. on
Until
Saturday.
10 a.m. All right. So get your cardboard ready. And Mr. Seymour? You might be interested. I'm not quite sure.
Hard of
sir.
hearing.
But I will be there, and I am very, very proud of you. This is an incredible, incredible capstone project. Can't wait to sleep on that football field. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I think one of the things that makes Winton Woods City Schools unique is our caring attitude. I mean, we care in ways that people can't even imagine. And so that leads us into the next conversation with the Winton Woods teacher, Lead Defeat Teacher of the Week. Come on up, Ms. Barker. So here's the press release. Kathleen Barger, a language arts teacher at Winton Woods Middle School, was named Lead Defeat Teacher of the Week for January 20th to the 24th. For the last 5 years, Winton Woods Middle School has worked with Lead Defeat organizations to raise money and awareness to combat world hunger. In 2016, the school was honored for being among the charter members for the Lead Defeat certified schools. This honor was earned through Winton Woods Middle School's engagement in and completion of the Lead Defeat Student Leadership Program and associated Lead Defeat Challenge. Ms. Kathleen Barger, thank you. Of course.
I am very thrilled to be part of this district because Lead Defeat fits all of our needs. Lead Defeat is about leadership, it's about service, it's about PBL, project-based learning, and it's about taking kids from where they are and making them grow further. So I'm very proud to be a part of this. Thank
Bravo.
you.
Thank you. Our last Community Spirit Award presentation goes to our great friends at Day Springs Church. Winton Woods City Schools is grateful to the congregation of Day Springs Church, Senior Pastor Tim Kufield, and his team for their service and outreach to our students and their families as they fulfill their mission to impact our community and our world. Earlier this year, Day Springs invited the district to be part of the Feed the Children food drop, which gave away 60,000 pounds of food and personal items to families in need. This event, which was sponsored by the Star Riding and Touring Motorcycle Organization, personally impacted over 250 warrior families who benefited from this assistance. In 2010, Day Springs joined a coalition of churches who worked together to bring Whiz Kids Unplugged to Winton Woods Middle School. This volunteer tutoring program was specifically designed to address the social and academic pressures faced by middle school students. Anybody here have a middle school child? Yes, that's pressure. Absolutely, yes. Another Day Springs outreach, Operation Letter Storm, was a partnership that began in 2007 between the church and the district. Winton Woods students showed their support of our troops by writing letters to those in the military who were serving our country in locations around the world. The letters were included in care packages that were put together by Day Springs Yellow Ribbon Support Group. Additionally, the church has served our families through its Giving Tree program and hosted our band for a Christmas concert to raise money for its 2015 trip to China. We thank Pastor Kufeld, his staff, and members of this congregation for their ongoing service to our district and for their outreach to our families and community. Please accept our deep appreciation, the district's Community Spirit Award for February 2017. Thank you, sir.
You know, you're taking a chance when you give the pastor an opportunity to speak in a microphone. This is really a humbling experience. But tonight, I think more of my reward or award of being here is the witness, the heroes that have been lifted up tonight, students who have led and organizations who have ministered. I just was blessed tonight. I'm often a crier, and tonight I was crying as these young people were receiving rewards and hearing of their accomplishments. And I think one of the greatest things you can do as this beautiful community is to really establish that call to leadership and that call to serve, and you have done that well. And by taking this time, I don't know if you do this every month, but by taking this time, I think this is the most valuable time that you could spend in just saying, good job, kids, and all that. I've been a part of this community now for 16 years, and I've seen how this city is so diverse and have overcome that the problems that we often discover in communities that are diverse. If I can brag just a second about Dayspring. Dayspring has transitioned over the past 16 years to become a really true reflection of the demographics of this community, where one time it was just a pretty homogeneous congregation of white folks. Now we're a very blended congregation. And actually, according to the latest statistics, Dayspring Church falls in line of being one of the 14% of all American churches that have true diversity. And true diversity is defined as this, that at least 20% of its membership is not of the majority ethnic group. We, as a church, as we look at the demographics of our congregation, we are 32% African American, 12% international, then the rest of us are European Heinz 53 variety. But when I look across that congregation, I see Winton Woods, I see Forest Park, I see truly the community coming together and establishing this unity that we have together. I know we live in a time where politically and socially and in inner city, it's very scary. But the example that we have, and the example tonight of these young people and these communities and these families who have exhibited, I've talked too long, but thank you so much for this honor, for the opportunity of the pulpit for a second. God, and I want to just say God bless you. And we do pray for this community regularly, and we believe that that's what really makes a difference. And so thank you. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Dr. Holden? No, she is not getting an award. She's going to call some of the names. Dr. Holden's been to China how many times? Like 45 times?
Yeah, about 10. Good evening, and please excuse me because I know there are going to be some mispronunciations, but I want to recognize some students that were not here last month, so I'm not sure if they're all here tonight, but these are our international students, first from China. So Evelyn Shuzi Ma, host family Amy Richburg. And then Timber Fanliu Mong, host family Shelley Hurd. Arthur Hanchen Wong, host family Jessica Fujikawa. Peter Hao Zhong, host family Shelley Hurd. Anarchy Yu Chen Zhang, host family Shelley Hurd. And I know she's here. Thea Chen Chuang, host family Amy Richburg. And then we have an international student from Germany, Celine Mertens, host family Eric and Jennifer Long. Welcome to Winton Woods.
For the Chinese students that are not here tonight, we're going to keep calling your name every month until you show up.
Ladies, look this way, please. We wrote those. Thank you.
Madam President and Board, those are all of the awards for tonight.
Ms. Bailey hasn't come?
No.
Thank you, ladies. You can be seated. And thank you, Superintendent Smith. And thank you to our wonderful community, students, and staff. We will now take a 5-minute recess, okay? We'll go ahead and go back into session. And seeing as we have no public comments, board colleagues, we'll just move on to 5.0, which is the approval of minutes as presented. Unless any necessary changes or revisions are needed for these, a motion would be in order.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion?
Is that
See-
seconded by Mrs. Ruggles? Or?
Mr. Birdie.
Okay.
Mr.
you.
Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Brody?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And Mr. Seymour, we will move into the treasurer's report.
Basically, we're through 7 months of the year, and our year-to-date revenues in the general fund are at $27.7 million, of which 3.8 was for the month of January. Most of that is we've started our real estate tax collections. As you know, your tax bills went out, and some of that was also the state foundation. Also, in the general fund, our year-to-date expenditures are right at $28.7 million. And currently, we're running around 3.5% under our projected budget. This equates to approximately $2 million. For the month of January, you may have noticed, though, I'm sure Mr. Birdie did, he noticed that the month-to-date expenditures were up around $613,000 over typical January expenditures. And just to point out to you, that's the month that the board makes the donations to our health savings accounts for those employees that opt the high deductible health insurance, and that ran the district around $350,000. And that also is the month of severance payments for those individuals that left the district in retirement at the end of last school year. Those payments are deferred till January 15th of the month following the year of retirement. For all funds, we ended up with $25.4 million unencumbered, of which 14.1 was the general fund and 9.8 was our building fund. So our two major fund balances will now continue for a while to be the general fund and our building fund.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Any questions for Mr. Seymour? Board colleagues? Okay, with no objections being heard, we will let that treasurer's report for January 2017 be submitted to audit. And back to you, Mr. Seymour, for 7.01.
Also, for the month of January, we had interest generated of 18,900, not 18.9 million. Wouldn't that be great?
Yes. Yes, it would.
Of that was 19,700 was for our general fund, and $193 as we get started on the investments of our building fund.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the investment report as presented for January 2017.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we will move on into the appropriations amendment. Mr.
Again,
Seymour?
as you know, at the organizational meeting, you give me parameters to modify the appropriations, but this is one where I need board permission to modify. We have had additional revenue come in under the special trust, and we have the beginning balance plus additional revenues to cover the increased appropriation. The increased appropriation for that special trust is we act as an agency for all of your student travel. We have had additional student travel this year, so I've had to increase the anticipated budget for that travel. So I'm asking that you increase the special trust from $75,000 to $100,000. And of course, I forward this then to the county auditor to amend our certificate.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to amend the fiscal year 17 appropriations for the fund, the special fund, from $75,000 to $100,000 as recommended by the treasurer.
I'll second.
Did you get that
I
one?
closest,
Yeah.
my hearing's bad, you know. So the closest one to.
That works.
Does that
Been
work?
motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Seymour? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you call that vote?
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we'll move on into 7.03, Mr. Seymour.
You'll recall back around in November, I believe you passed a resolution, very detailed, multiple pages, just like this one. A resolution for the board to enter into the sale of notes. We have sold those notes. We have received $61.5 million on the sale of those notes with a very good interest rate, and actually generated premium enough from the sale of those notes to cover all of our expenses aligned with the sale of those notes. Now we've got to get ready to sell the actual bonds, and as you know, we delayed the sale of the bonds to get our rating. So we will be getting our rating in March, hopefully. So now we're getting ready to sell the bonds to pay off the notes, and the very lengthy resolution that I'm sure you've all read and may have questions on is giving the board president, Mrs. Miranda, and myself the authority to sign the paperwork as needed as we get ready to sell those bonds. We completed all the paperwork on the sale of the notes, and Mrs. Miranda and I meet with the attorney, and we go through all the paperwork and we sign them. So what you're basically doing here is giving us that authority now to sell those bonds to pay off those notes. And of course, we have to act within the parameters that you've set, and the resolution has been drafted by your financial legal counsel. And I don't know if you have any more questions, but that is the gist of the bond resolution.
Let's put the motion on the floor first, and then we'll get to discussion or questions. So board colleagues, a motion would be in order.
Madam President, I'd like to approve the resolution authorizing the issuance of classroom facility unlimited tax general obligation funds, Series 2017, as described by Treasurer. Should I continue with reading more of what the... Okay, I just wasn't sure how far we wanted to read into it. Okay.
I'll second. I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Seymour?
I did have one question, Madam President. Starting in March, when we get the approval on our rating,
Yes.
How long does it usually take to finish that process? Is that?
We go to 2 rating agencies in March. Mr. Smith, myself, our financial attorney, and our bond sales financial advisor. And I'm not sure how long it will take, but they have this all scheduled out, and they so far everything has went according to schedule. And I believe we're going to go to Fitch and Standard & Poor's or Moody's. We're going to get rated by 2 agencies. And I don't know if they've determined which 2 agencies and which 2 are available. But they'll both be on the same day on March 22nd in Chicago. Does that help at all?
These are, obviously this is new to many of us, so I was just trying to figure out some questions and timelines and how long this
Unfortunately,
process.
Winton Woods had no bond rating because you have no bonded debt. So if any indication is how we did on our notes, we should be get a fairly good rating. As you know, many states operate differently, and your rating agencies do it for all of the United States. Ohio is unique in the fact that you levy taxpayer debt to cover your debt. You've probably read that some states don't necessarily operate that way. If you read Chicago, Detroit, sometimes they can borrow without levying taxes to cover that debt or to back that debt. So typically, most states that do levy, and there's no anticipation that it would go off the ballot, they typically, not at the top, but they typically rate well. They will also look at your 5-year forecast, and they do not look as much at the future as they look at your past 5 years and how you've managed your money. Because we all know that 5-year forecasts are generated optimistically, optimistically conservative on receipts, and optimistically want to cover your expenditures. And they know that the history is a better indication than the future. As long as one question will probably arise for us is that we do have an emergency levy that expires in 2019, and they'll probably ask our superintendent or myself or our confidence in renewing that levy. And hopefully our confidence level will be good as long as we ask for no new taxes.
Right.
And they like that kind of renewal. Our forecast won't be dependent upon an additional request for funds.
Good.
I don't know if that helps, but.
No, it does. I just kind of wanted our board and then those that are observing to kind of understand, since this is new for our district, and then the process that we're following and how we're, it's helpful from our taxpayer point of view that we're getting good ratings on the evaluations so that we get a good return on our money.
Right. One thing we have to have ready before we go is called our official statement, which is a very lengthy document, and we're working on that right now. So we have to have that ready to go before we go to the rating.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Any additional questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And now to 7.04.
It should have been more timely, but we worked with all your support groups, and we finally got our budgets from our performing arts groups, our athletic boosters, and our PTA. All I was simply doing was submitting them to you for item of information. And as you know, we recognized those 3 groups as your groups, I believe, in January of 15. So each year I will try to get their budgets as they have developed them to you for your item of information.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Board, a motion would be in order for 7.04.
We don't need a motion.
Oh, we don't? Okay,
Sorry.
just for record.
I just wanted to get
Awesome.
for your review.
Thank you, Mr. Seymour. Okay, now we move to the superintendent for 8.01.
Yes, Madam President and Board, I'd like to highlight one particular school this evening, and that's the ES. They are involved in a very incredible project called MAGIS, and the word MAGIS means more in Latin. It's a profound and deeply personal concept. It's about doing more, being more, and achieving more than originally thought possible. Winton Woods MAGIS is centered on project-based learning that prepares and supports students at Winton Woods Elementary School in science, technology, engineering, art, design, and math. It challenges students to stretch themselves as leaders and innovators and strive for excellence in their pursuits. In MAGIS, we ask, what if you spent your school day amazing yourself? So if you get a chance, there will be special sessions from 3:30 to 4:45 in room 103. January's already taken place, that one. But there's going to be one on March 3rd and March 10th. So it was an 8-week session. We got the information later, but the kids are very inspired about it. And if you get a chance, please stop by. And the word is? MAGIS. Very good. Very good. There is a special date on March 21st that later on in the meeting, Mr. Martin's going to come up and give you some additional information about regarding ACT. And of course, this is the last year for the administration of the Ohio graduation test, and that will be administered March 13th to 17th.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions for the superintendent before we move on? Okay, seeing none, we will move into 8.02.
Mr. Denny?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Good evening, Board.
Good evening, Mr. Denny.
Hope you're all doing well. You should have before you, as is fairly traditional and typical for this time of year, a report on the transportation services usage for our school district for this school year. Around this time of year, the district submits what are called the T1, the T reports. It's a series of reports 1 through 9 that are issued and reported to the state for their review that basically discusses the services offered by the district for transporting students. And so you should have 3 reports, miles by service type, and these are just the high-level summary reports. The amount of minutia and detail is fairly significant. But you should have before you miles by service type, and then another report called pupils by service type, and then finally a longitudinal report that I prepare that's based on those two that goes back to 2009 just to see trend data. That question has come up in the past. So how does this compare to last year and so forth? So that's what that report is for. So you should have that before you. I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have. Just the overall comment I would make is that the service levels are fairly consistent with what they've been in past years. Transported 2,455 students last year, transporting 2,513 this year. Miles are approximately the same. And then finally, the question that typically comes up, this is actually really good news, so I'm very excited to announce this. And I have to cheat a little bit, I apologize, and put these on, because this font is way too small. However, as of February of 2017, we have actually caught our fleet up. It is, and what I mean by that specifically is the average age of a bus, a yellow school bus in the state of Ohio, is 9.42 years old. The average age of our bus right now is 8.5. So we actually just passed the average age in Ohio. I've not seen that since I've been in the role I'm in. The average age of our frontline fleet, meaning the buses that do most of the work, is 5.3 years old, and we have 28 of those buses. And there are 14 what we call sub-buses, and they average at an age of 14.9 years old. But I'm excited to let you know that your fleet that's valued at a replacement cost of approximately $3.4 million is actually a very sound investment and is actually at this point now caught up to the state standard for fleet age, which is a very key component that determines maintenance costs and things like that, reliability and service levels. So with that, I'll open it for any comments, questions, or observations you might have.
You know, when there's unforeseen circumstances like an accident, the first thing the reporters want to ask us is, how old is your bus? And knowing that Mr. Denny's worked diligently on making sure that our fleet is younger than most is a great attribute to his work. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Much.
My pleasure.
One other thing too, I do want to appreciate the importance in saving money on cost and repair with newer buses, and not only the safety aspect of it, but with the cost of repair and transportation costs and so forth. We appreciate you being prudent with the district's money. Mainly kids safety, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, Mr. Denny.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Superintendent, we'll move on to 8.03.
Yes, ma'am. You'll see that there are some deleted policies, and these policies are obsolete due to new changes in the law. So there are many policies for first read. If there's anything that the board has an appetite that they need further conversation on, I'll be more than happy to give you background information of why these policies are up for review now.
Board colleagues, any questions, concerns at the moment on these first reads?
Not any concerns necessarily, but I would just like to say, I think we all should look at these because usually they don't come in this volume.
No.
And just so that, one set of eyes will see one thing, and then if we see anything that we could discuss it at our work session, but that everybody take a look at these
Excellent point,
policies
Dr. Johnson.
and see,
Yes.
what they might have some questions on. So.
I do have on the technology policy 7540, and I believe it's also on the web content and functionality specifications policies. The way I'm reading it is we're leaving the responsibility of the staff member in the technology policy to archive any social media that they use. And and in the web content and functionality specification policy, there is language that says that the person that's actually using it should be responsible for making sure that we're compliant with FERPA, COPA, SIPA, ADA.
Yeah, we
things.
spent a lot of time having a conversation about that with Ms. Wilson.
Yeah. And really, I just want to make sure that we're thinking about how do we do that and how do we make sure that we support the staff and the teachers in that role and make sure that we don't get out of whack.
And so, I'm not sure that's the new part. So some of this is already existing policy, and so that
Yeah, that may not be new part, but just because these were in front of me.
Right. So we're not changing that part of it.
Yeah, I've read them.
So, but I'm happy to talk to you about
Okay.
policy in general if you'd like to talk about it.
Okay.
Any others? Okay, we will move on to 9.01, Superintendent.
At 9.01, Madam President, and Board Personnel Schedules, and the recommendations to approve the personnel schedules as presented. Schedule A, resignations and retirements. Schedule B, certificated staff. Schedule C, support staff. Schedule D, extra duty and supplemental employment. Schedule E, leaves. And finally, Schedule G, suspension of contracts.
Board colleagues, a motion would be in order for 9.01.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the personnel schedules as presented by the superintendent.
I'll second it.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further, or any discussion? Questions?
I actually do have a question. On Schedule B, are these new hires or are these, is this indicating an increase or, did someone get a degree? I'm just trying to figure, are these new hires?
They're new hires for next fall.
For next fall?
Yes. So they'll start in the fall. So we're losing.
Oh, okay, I see the date. I see the date. Okay, I missed that.
Anytime that we can do it in advance is really to our advantage.
Yeah, don't wait.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie? Aye. Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move into 9.02.
We've already reviewed the proposal for the overnight, and I just need the board to give its recommendation or its approval.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal for the overnight student event held on the 17th of March through the 18th at the Winton Woods High School Stadium as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I would just like to ask a question just for security purposes. What will be the security as far as making sure that people who are out there are safe? I didn't read anything about that. Or is there going to be security?
Chaperones?
Yes. I mean, not just chaperones, not just
Yeah.
me out there sleeping. No, that doesn't count.
Wait.
I'm not security.
So are you saying,
No, I'm
Madam
not.
Vice President, that you're going to be there?
Actually, Jeff and I have already covered what we're going to do, so.
Okay,
Yes,
all right.
I'll pull him in on this. We've already covered what we're going to do, so. No, but I mean, just, is there gonna be some security, about, like, like Forest Park Police to, like,
Well, we do have a great relationship with Forest Park's finest, so
Yes.
I'm sure that they would be more than happy
All
to be
right.
part
I
of
mean,
our.
not that you anticipate anything, but we are out there in the open overnight. I mean, they, our people, so just. Overnight, outside.
So that's a solid yes, I hear from.
Solid yes
Okay.
on the security, okay.
Okay.
And it is a wonderful idea in order to raise awareness for homeless and, and how they do live. So I think it's a great
Yes.
project.
Yes, I did not have a question. I just wanted to congratulate you and thank you, Mr. Martin, and to our student for coming to present that. I think anytime we have the opportunity for someone who's proposing an overnight trip to be here in person to present it is amazing. This time it was a student, so that's like icing on the cake for us. So thank you. Wish she was still here so I could thank her, but I'm sure she has other things to do tonight. So, any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie? Aye. Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And 9.03, Superintendent.
Yes, Madam President and Board, the great state of Ohio, the Ohio Department of Education, has now declared that there is an ACT testing date. This date is not a date that you have any leverage with. It is the date.
Right.
And so every 11th grader in the state will be tested at the same time, different locations, of course, but within the same parameters, the same 3 hours. And Mr. Martin is going to give you an overview of what our plan looks like.
Thank you.
All right, so welcome back to the mic, right? You guys ready? When we received the information in regards to what date the test would be on, we kind of received it, Dr. Holden, about a month ago? Maybe a little bit over a month ago, which in turn got not only our district thinking in terms of how we were going to pull this off, it got everybody in the state of Ohio trying to figure out how can we make this happen. We will be testing 302 students. So we'll pull our students from the Oaks. That will be 51 students. We'll pull our students from the alternative program, and they'll all come back to the high school to test. Part of what the issue was, though, is that there are a lot of stipulations and a lot of requirements that ACT puts on how you administer the test. One of the things that we ran into in terms of our space is the whole idea of we needed at least 25 rooms to test in. And if you do the math in terms of how many classes we have in our high school, we weren't going to be able to hold a traditional session as well as do the test with fidelity and do it the way that it's mandated that it's done. So one of the things that I attempt to do before we move a proposal to Mr. Smith, I try to alleviate all of the questions he's going to ask. I try to get it in one run, and I tell my people that I work with, he's only allowed to send it back to us once, so we have to figure this thing out. So what we ended up doing was challenging the counseling staff to come up with 3 different options, in terms of how can we pull this off. We went through it over and over again. Then we collaborated with teaching and learning multiple times. We collaborated with technology. One of the things that we're doing, we are doing the ACT on our Chromebooks. So we're using technology to do the ACT. Part of the concern from technology was that connectivity would be a huge issue for us. And you want to make the testing environment as sterile as possible. And one hiccup can invalidate everybody's test. So we went over and over and over and over again in terms of how could we get our biggest bang for our buck and make this work for everybody. I'm not sure if you guys remember a couple of years ago, this whole idea around Blizzard bags came out, right? And it was that whole, how are you going to instruct students when there's no school? One of the things that we came up with is making it a virtual learning day for 3 grade levels, the 9th, the 10th, and the 12th grade. And we also reached out to our partners in the communities. One of them stepped up, like, without us even really getting the ass fully out, and that was the Underground. We also have, they're going to open up their doors for 100 of our students at the high school who want to get a little bit more instruction kind of space. And some of our kids may not even have connectivity at home, so they want to get into a secure, safe space where we'll also have some of our teachers there to kind of help with that whole process as well. But we went over and over and over again trying to figure out a way, because if you know Mr. Smith the way I know Mr. Smith, he does not want kids out of school when they should be in school. But as we went through the different options, the only one that made sense for the timing that we had and then for the facility that we have and the connectivity concerns that we had was to limit that day for our students. So all of our students who won't be present in the building that day, they are expected to be present virtually. So that's one of the big advantages for us to have the one-to-one devices at the high school. And we use the instructional platform called Echo. So everything's funneled through that anyway. So it gives our kids an opportunity to work collaboratively outside of the classroom, gives them an opportunity to move to spaces and work on some things to help build their projects. And also gives us an opportunity to really have a secure site and a great testing environment for the juniors. Now, the testing time is only going to last for about 3 hours. But one of the things that I've been wanting to do and hadn't had the opportunity to do it is really take some time and focus on juniors. So we're excited to say that we'll test for the morning, we'll eat lunch, and then in the afternoon, we're going to do career and college focus for students, our junior class. So one of the things that we do offer is Naviance. It'll give us an opportunity to really dig deep in regards to Naviance. And also, we're looking at a couple possibly like motivational speakers to kind of come in and do some different kind of sessions, but we really want to focus on prepping kids in terms of launching themselves in their 12th grade year so they can prepare for next chapter. So that's our goal around this. This is something I've been wanting to do for the longest, to give more attention, because, you know, as you start going through that process, a lot of times you spend a lot of attention and time on 12th graders. And this is actually an awesome opportunity for us to kind of take a step back and really say some things, guide some young people that's in the junior class the way we want to guide them as they prepare for their 12th grade year.
Mr. Martin, what's the cost of the ACT for students?
To take the ACT? I'm not even sure anymore. How much is it, man? Do you know?
You mean on March 21st?
No, just period.
Pushing $70.
And for this particular day?
Zero.
Free.
Zero.
So we want to give our kids every advantage to do very, very well. Otherwise, any hiccup, like Mr. Martin said, can invalidate the test. And not just for one, possibly for the entire school.
Right.
We can't afford that.
Can you speak to that for a little bit? Go back to that hiccup and speak to specifically tardiness and why we are proposing to do it this way and how important that is for everyone watching at home?
Okay. So when you think about it, what part of the regulations that they gave us, we can't start the tests after 9:30. All right. So that's one of the issues in terms of just making sure that we're prompt as we start the test. Right. The other thing that I would say, just in terms of really hitting in on the whole environment for us, is we want to make it as great of an environment for our kids to come prepared. We're even putting a series of things that we're going to start shooting out to them through their emails in terms of preparing for this opportunity, because this is really unprecedented for the state of Ohio. I mean, you're going to have every junior in the state of Ohio test with the ACT. And we know, as well as some of our young people, sometimes they access the voucher to take the test. And this way we know every student in our junior class will have taken the test. It'll give us an unbelievable gauge, and it'll be great data for us to use as we move forward in terms of gauging where our kids are and how we grow our kids.
Mr. Martin, I think Ms. President Miranda was leading you to another conversation.
What's that?
If a student comes in after 9:30, what are the consequences?
If a student comes in after 9:30, they're going to pop open their Chromebook, and they're going to get their next chapter prep in terms of elevating to the next level in terms of what we're doing in the afternoon. There's no way that they can come in after 9:30. Well, actually, they can't come in after 9 and test.
Right.
Okay.
It's not possible.
Sure. And what are some of the communication
Thank you for
means with
clarification.
families and the students, and how many times are just reminders of what's going to happen and itinerary?
We've actually started that maybe 2 weeks ago. So in terms of just giving our folks an opportunity in terms of really realizing what this means for us. We actually put together, with the guidance of Mr. Smith, a release that has been shot out through our communication avenues. Also, we do all calls. When the high school are avid all-call users. So we do that maybe twice a week just to remind folks and get them ready. We also use Naviance to shoot out an email about it as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Martin, I have to say I appreciate the time and the focus on the logistics of this. I have had the opportunity to help administer the GED test, so I know how the state can be very stringent on their rules and validation. And I remember fire alarms going off at the college and was having to pack up everything in a lock box and running out such that the tests were not invalidated. So, and also the other thought in how you're going to work with the other students and thinking through, we need to have 25 classrooms, the focus on making sure that it's the best testing environment for those students is very important. So I appreciate the focus and the thought that has been put into this process.
I appreciate that. And not to talk bad about any of our neighbors, but there's a lot of schools are doing it differently. And some of the choices that are being made kind of scare me. I wouldn't want to test 302 kids in a gym.
Well, I remember doing that.
All you need is just one incident, and then it invalidates 302 kids' tests.
Well, that was one of the points that I wanted to make, is that the state has mandated those restrictions on all the desks facing one way.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
all those kinds of things. And just to kind of reiterate, the grades, the 9th grade, the 10th grade, and the 12th graders are not in attendance.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're going to actually be working through ECHO, the virtual
Yes, ma'am.
assignments. And it's just the 11th graders, and bringing in all of them, into the schools. That is a huge undertaking, and it really, just like you say, getting it coordinated so that it all works, just right. Is a really big deal. Now, one question I did have, you said that the underground is offered to open its doors. Is that for test preparation, or is that for the students who are working on the ECHO, the 9th, the 10th, and the 12th graders?
Students who are working on ECHO. Now, they have a limit of 100 students that they can house, just because of space. But we're also going to send a team of 10 teachers over as well. And it'll give our kids an opportunity to ask questions and get some work in terms of getting some hands-on outside of that regular traditional classroom setting that we have at the high school. One of the other things when you talk about the connectivity, though, we were really concerned, and Rhonda Haas was extremely concerned, because when you start talking about connectivity, if we'd have tried to pull this off and all our students coming with their cell phones and coming with their other devices, I can guarantee you the system would have crashed.
Something would happen,
What does the state do with kids that are on IEPs and
They have accommodations.
They have accommodations.
They have their accommodations, but they also take the ACT.
They also take
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And then one other question, as far as weather, say for example, the weather's bad that day, they have, I guess, a backup plan on how to, from the state of Ohio, there's no backup, like if it's, we
the
get a snow day
ACT
that
has
day?
not communicated that with us as of yet.
It's still March 21st, and we've not had winter yet, so I was kind of.
It's not coming.
State of Ohio says,
Okay.
yes.
That's okay. I didn't know if that was a contingency.
They have not
there.
communicated that to us yet.
Hopefully there's not
But
one.
here's the good part, board. 3 years from now, Mr. Martin will be able to have school in the new school, and still test.
Right.
Because we'll have the right accommodations and the right feet and the right square feet, and everything will be correct. Correct, Mr. Denny? Yes, sir. Thank
Should
you.
ODE choose this path in the future?
It's
Asterisk.
March 21st.
The other point that we might want to state is that this ACT for the Department of Education is becoming a standard because they're looking at making this the replacement for the OGT. That's kind of what's not been said in this conversation.
And it's actually an option.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an option. What they've done is the end of course exams. Those are the point system. But one of the option is remediation-free ACT score as well to meet graduation requirements. So it is one option.
Yeah.
And I think the part that Dr. Johnson was mentioning is, if I'm a student and I know that I'm inspired for a career but not necessarily college, and I want to be a barber, what score would I have to get on the ACT in order to get out of high school, as opposed to another student says I want to be an electrical engineer? Electrical engineer that wants to go to Yale may need a 32, and the barber needs what? He can't need a 32. So I think that's where the controversy comes from the state. Chicago, the state of Illinois, has been doing ACT across the board for many, many years, and their average ACT score is absolutely pretty good.
Any more questions?
I only had one more question
Yes,
for you
ma'am.
because I missed the last number. You came with the data prepared, so I appreciate it. You said 302 students total, 51 from the Oaks, and what was the number from Project Success?
Project Success was 24 maybe?
24.
Maybe
Okay.
24. And those are juniors, all juniors. But we'll be testing 302.
Okay. Thank you. We should probably go ahead and put the motion on the floor now, since we kind of did the discussion prior to.
Yes, we did. Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ACT test day as presented.
Second?
It's been motioned and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions? All right. Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. And we will move into 9.04. Superintendent Smith?
Madam President and Board, I'm sure everyone received their high school's program of studies, and Dr. Holden is going to come up if there are questions that you guys have, that there are some concerns about some of the studies or some particulars that have raised your eyebrow.
And again, just as a point of order, may we please go ahead and put the motion on the floor first, and then we'll call for discussion.
Program studies. Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2017-18 Winton Woods High School Program of Studies as presented.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded, and we will move into discussion and questions for Dr. Holden. Board colleagues?
Well, I have a couple questions for you too.
Okay.
I love, I like Mr. Martin's idea about taking the juniors and using that time after the ACT to talk about their future scheduling, how do they best plan to get the most out of high school. So I'm very excited about this information to present to our families and our students. And I did have a question about one of the criteria that we use for our top scholars. And there was one section, there's 3 different sections the state of Ohio has. It's the International Baccalaureate. No?
It does not exist for us.
Oh, right. But it was highlighted in the booklet instead of the honors, the diploma with honors program, which is the standard.
The
that we
highlight
use.
is a default,
Okay.
Mrs. Kuhn, from the document that's downloaded
That's
from
fine.
ODE.
That's okay. I just wanted to just take it from a parent point of view or a student point of view, how you would look at it. and how it would come across if you were reading it online or something, just to point that out.
Right.
I just want to make sure our students know what we want them to go for, and that they know how that works. And then one other question about the CCP, the College Credit Plus.
Right.
And what I was hoping is that our counselors can help our students that want to choose that option when they're seniors explain how that translates. So if you have to graduate with 4 credits in English.
So, so the counselors do a great job of communicating with students throughout the year, but we're required by law, by Ohio Revised Code, to have X number of meetings, and so we do that. Mr. Martin tells me we have, what, 20 some odd
26
applications right now. So if you take a 3 credit hour course, that equals 1 Carnegie unit.
One.
So typically what we do is we don't have students take 6 hours of English in a year to get 2 credits. Typically the counselors work with them and they try to mirror, honestly, a high school schedule. Does that make sense?
If you're a parent now. But this is my,
Because on the-
from a
you're-
parent point of view, I don't think.
Well, okay, so let's project it. So I'm going to take 6 hours of English each year. So after my sophomore year, I'm done with high school English. That's what that would be, because you would earn 4 Carnegie units in English. So
I'm just thinking I have to take it my freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, and by the time I get to my
Right.
senior year, if I took college English class, and it's a semester, so I think what I'm trying to figure out is what do semester classes in college equal to?
So
high school?
generally, a semester class in college is 3 credit hours.
Right.
Right. Equals 1 Carnegie unit. So it would equal like English 9. You
Okay,
could
so
go
that would
the-
be you wouldn't have to take 2 each semester an English if you were a senior and you were trying to get 4?
No.
Okay.
No, you would not.
Okay. I mean, this sounds really weird, but these are really logistical questions you start thinking
Right.
about. And if you're trying to do the schedule.
No, that makes sense. But if I'm talking to parents and students about what makes sense academically, it doesn't make sense to kind of front load all your English or front load your math. But in theory, certainly you could do that.
But
We
you-
don't have.
yeah.
I don't think we have any students that do that.
Maybe I'm probably making this harder than it is, but that I.
So
the
if you
question is,
only take CCP at grade 12,
Right.
you've already completed 3 years of English. So you would only need to take 1 semester course of English
Okay, that's
to
sort
meet
of
graduation requirements. How's that?
That's sort of
Okay.
the question, because then it's like, was that a whole year or half a year?
Correct.
Is that, how does that equate? And that's not always clear all the time.
Right. So there's guidance, just for anyone who wants to know. There's very detailed guidance on ODE. The CCP information, when you go to the Ohio Department of Education, they're going to route you to the Ohio Board of Regents, because all of that comes from the Board of Regents through ODE. And then the counselors and the administrators at the high school are well versed in this.
Okay, because I just want, because sometimes it's too late after the fact to fix something, so I'd rather have kind of that roadmap ahead of time from, if
Right.
they're interested in that
And we have a
course.
lot of younger students exploring CCP.
It's a great opportunity.
Right. And you can meet just so there's no misunderstanding, you can use your CCP courses to meet some of the high school graduation requirements with 2 exceptions. And those exceptions are English and mathematics. So if I take American history as a CCP course, I can use my course grade, and then there's a little table that translates your grade to the number of points. But I can use my course grade and not have to take the end of course exam in American history. You may not do that for English or mathematics.
Okay. I was just afraid with all the changes in the graduation and then mixing this in, that it makes it a little bit confusing.
And just so everybody knows, we've known about these changes for years, so that's kind of all we've been communicating to students and parents.
We'll continue to communicate, though.
Any further discussion or questions?
Just one point, I think we do this already, but if you could just clarify it for me. I think where the counselors and that pull students' transcripts at the end of the 10th grade year and go over it and say, this is what you need in the 11th grade and the 12th grade in order to graduate. And if they're missing something, you need to get to summer school and they look at it again at the end of the 11th grade. And so, I mean, just that kind of preparation should not leave anybody startled or surprised at the end, you know, oh my God, I'm, 5 credits short or 3 credits short or 1 credit short. Somebody is looking at that at the end of every school year for every one of our students, right?
Yes, and I will say we now have a tool for us. It's been a long time in coming through Dazzle. So and EMIS, it's the connected piece. So the counselors or the administrators or I can get in a student's Dazzle record, and there's I think it's called the graduation component. And so you can go in and see, okay, this is where this student is deficient in end of course exams, this is how many points they've earned, these are the remediation free scores, because with the new requirements, it's really complex in that you can meet it any number of ways and in any, multiple combinations. So it is easy. If we did not have that, it would be really easy to miss something, because you have to keep, the high school is keeping multiple spreadsheets before this part of Dazzle was opened up.
And Dr. Holden and the board, the high school also, we've implemented, we started it maybe last year, but we do multiple credit check nights where the counselors and the administrators are at the high school. And we sit down and all call any parent that wants to come in and get their students out of any situation. We're there. I think this year we've held 3 already, but it's enough. We don't believe in surprises. So we're going to over-communicate student situations and get them in to work through whatever it is needed to work.
But any discrepancies that we had in the past was not about credit. It was about OGT. It was never about credit. The credit trackers, things that they do, even when Dr. Holden was the principal there, is very, very just sound, very sound. So again, the students usually had the credit, but it was a point differential on the test that kind of created the storm.
I do want to say one last thing, since we have also talked about ACT. That is a way to meet the graduation requirements. However, it's not the component score. You have to meet the remediation free score for each area, and they're not the same. So.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie? Aye. Mrs. Miranda?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dr. Holden and Mr. Martin. And we will move on to 9.05, Superintendent.
Yes, the recommendation is to approve the inter-district and open enrollment policy for the 17-18 school year. I'm going to have Ms. Wilson come up and give you some background information of why we made some of the changes in our open enrollment policy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The open enrollment policy, what we found were there were a couple of issues. One was that the prior policy had sort of a rolling open enrollment through October, and when we initially adopted that policy, the funding went through October count. I don't know if any of you all remember that, but there was an October count week, and that's when funding was calculated. So as we reviewed the policy, we realized that's sort of an antiquated way to handle open enrollment. And what we were finding is that kids that enrolled that late, it was very disruptive to learning. So principals decided that we should have a shorter window, and instead of doing it on a first come first served basis, what they preferred to do is to take all of the open enrollment all of the open enrollment applications and look at them at one time right before students started competing or practicing for fall sports. And that was sometime in, I think it was July. So the ideal is that we will have a shorter window beginning from April 1st until the end of, I believe it's June. And then we'll meet in July. And during July, we will have, by committee, principals, the enrollment staff, myself. We will sit and look at all of the open enrollment applications and determine which students are the best fit for the building. And then we also looked at the law. We had a situation where we had an open enrolled student with some issues, some behavioral issues, and we wanted to revoke their policy, their open enrollment, and we realized that once they're in, they're really our obligation.
That's right.
So we decided to take that language out, and so you'll see that it's stricken from, I think, the first or second paragraph. So now we're not revoking it, but we are doing, by committee, a better job of screening kids up front. Did you have any questions?
We're going to run into a problem at some point in time because when you look at the way the two buildings are going to be designed, it's for a capacity of 3,500 kids, and we're already at like 3,800. And so something's going to have to happen. We don't want to change our open enrollment policy where we're saying to open enrolled kids you can't come because, of course, being a resident of the community, you're automatically able to come. So we have to be very strategic in how we do our work to make sure that it fits our children's needs and also make sure that we've got the right kid coming to our district.
Can you speak to a little bit about how the committees are made up?
It's really just building principals, and what we will do is look at all of the applications, and as long as the students meet the criteria, then the building principals will accept them. And since we have grade level buildings before, there was a question about which principal got to make the decision. So if you were a student in the eighth grade going to the high school, the question was and you were a returning student, so you were already open enrolled as a Winton Woods student, could the middle school principal deny your open enrollment for the following year when really you were going to be the high school's responsibility, and vice versa? Could the high school say, I don't want you, if the middle school principal had already sort of said it's okay if you come back? So this way we're all going to meet as a committee, and we have criteria that we'll look at, and as long as you meet the criteria and there's space, then students would be enrolled, open enrolled. The other piece that's important to note is we worked with our EMIS director and realized that with open enrolled students that were already here, we had a policy in place, a procedure, I shouldn't say a policy, a procedure in place where we were sending letters to parents, and some parents were being very diligent in returning the letters, telling us that they intended to come back the following year. Other parents were not. And so what happened is the first few days of school, kids that were open enrolled from the previous school year showed up even though they hadn't sent back their letter telling us, which affected our staffing. Sometimes we were just confused about why they were here, if they were coming. And so Mr. Smith, with our EMIS director, made a decision that we are going to be very stringent about asking people for that commitment up front. And if we don't get it, then we are going to withdraw them. Then they would go into the general open enrollment pool through the deadline if they want to. And if they don't open enroll, then if they show up, they won't be admitted unless there's space in the open enrollment period hasn't passed.
You know, we were concerned about some liability issues where you have students in classes that are not your kid. And I know my colleagues down the road had about 400 of those issues. Yeah. And so it can happen to you easily because you're the teacher of record. You know that he should be in your class from the previous year. He comes in and sits down and you're like, okay, I know you're supposed to be here, but he's really not on your roster. That's really not good for us. So we have to be more specific about it and make sure this kid is really on the roster, he's enrolled, he's being counted, because something's going to happen around 12 o'clock. When he goes to lunch, he does not have a PIN number, he has no ID, he's not connected, and then the kid's denied a lunch opportunity because he's really not our kid.
Right.
So we had to do some fixing.
Right. Just a question. So you'll continue with students that come back, they'll still get a letter to say that they have to state their intention to come back again. And if they don't, then they'll go to that withdrawal.
So,
and
well,
will
we're
they
gonna
get another letter.
we're gonna
saying-
be very proactive. So they're not just gonna get a letter because we debate it. Like this seems harsh, so we debated that. So they're gonna have each building is gonna have an open enrollment meeting for parents, where they will do a one call and just sort of over communicate the necessity for anyone that's currently open enrolled. You must come to this meeting. We'll try to get the letter at the meeting, the commitment at the meeting. If we don't, we'll follow up with letters and one calls. But at some point, if we haven't heard from you, we're going to say, okay, you are now withdrawn. And that's the part that we didn't do before. We sort of erred on the side of letting the kids come back, which was great for the kid and the family, but it created, like Mr. Smith said, a little bit of a liability issue and a nightmare for our EMIS director.
So I was getting ready to ask that question. So how does this affect EMIS when you just automatically withdraw a student and don't send his records to any place? They're just kind of in the, whatever cyberspace. They're not being sent to another school
They'd
district.
be sent to
but
their
they're just withdrawn.
to their home district. Okay. So if it's a Princeton kid or a Mount Healthy kid,
So whatever their address is, you automatically will send
we
it
will
to them.
notify their school district and say, this student is being withdrawn from our district, and they are residing at.
And to the board,
XYZ.
we'll probably have to do this a few times before people catch on to the seriousness of it,
Right.
because in some cases, we're saying that seats are filled when we're holding slots, especially when we get through this Labor Day issue. There are our own students that live in our communities that really would have to be allowed to come. We couldn't deny them. And we're not trying to deny kids the opportunity to attend Winton Woods City Schools. We're trying to be more exact about our numbers because it does affect funding.
Yes. And planning.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, board colleagues, a motion would be in order for 9.05.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised policy 5113 inter-district open enrollment as presented.
Second.
Take whichever one you'd like, Mr. Seymour.
All right.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. Dr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Kim?
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mr. Birdie?
Aye.
Mrs. Moran?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move into Board of Education reports. For my legislative report, I'm going to defer that to our work session so that we can finish up our meeting tonight, move into our executive session that's needed this evening. So, Mr. Cleary, you have the floor for your Great Oaks report at 10.02.
Thank you, Madam President, Mr. Seymour, and Mr. Smith. Thank you for inviting me to the pulpit this evening. It looks like I have a really long report, but I really don't. It's really rather quick. This week began as usual. We had our Great Oaks Business Advisory Committee meeting at the Live Oaks. Live Oaks is way out there, kind of up near Wilmington. It's pretty far away. Our members had big boys for lunch, and the restaurant operations of the school took care of the luncheon. We heard about Claremont's Chamber Work Readiness Initiative from the director. Our members are the members of the Business Advisor are exploring best practices to help us better engage the business community and grow that advisory team. Tuesday, once again, found us participating in the United Way Greater Cincinnati, which is part of an ongoing initiative to tackle issues surrounding poverty. We are learning from their extensive research, and we are contributing also because we have to deal with the same issues of poverty. Poverty impacts our students in many ways and presents many barriers to engage the learner. On Tuesday evening, we attended the Excellence in Education Award at the University of Cincinnati. Nancy Flickner, an instructor in the teaching professions program at Taylor High School, was named Outstanding Cincinnati Area Public Educator by the university. Congratulations to her. I did make a typo in the next paragraph, and I caught it a little bit earlier. On Thursday morning, Matt Van Sant and Harry Schneider, it was not myself, I wish I had made this list, but it was Matt and Harry Schneider were honored. They were recognized by Cincinnati Magazine to be added to the top 100 most influential people in Cincinnati. That's a really big deal
It is a big deal.
for the Great Oaks. Harry was really surprised that he received that award. Says a lot about community engagement and that we really care about the business community to receive that award. Dylan Young was selected as a Presidential Scholar semifinalist by the Career Technical Education Association in Ohio. He is not one of our students, but this is kind of an interesting program. Dylan is in the legal office management program at Batavia High School. It's a little satellite program that they're putting on. The local community, I guess, the legal community had stepped out saying we're kind of looking like for a pre-paralegal. So they're putting some stuff on for their students out there that might be interested in that. Harry Schneider reported on the progress being made for the 2016-17 strategic goals. Our goals at the Great Oaks are actually set by campus because each campus's goals may not completely align to, it all aligns to the overall goal, but we measure them independently. One of the unique things, we have an attrition rate in the first semester. Last year, our attrition rate was 221 students, and this past year it was 106 students. And that's what we were looking. We were looking to lower that attrition rate to really be sure that the students align. They know a little bit more about their career choice. Enrollment in our satellite program last year was 12,541 students. In this year, we're projecting over 15,000 students. We're seeing a lot of growth in the career tech area. It's in the news all the time now that so many local businesses, they can't find a workforce. And a lot of those businesses want certification style degrees or programs or licensures so those potential employees come to them ready to work. This is the second year for our summer career camp. This is a great opportunity for the community. If you have a student that might be interested in a career, in a program that we offer at the Great Oaks, they can come out and spend a week on our campus, and we actually run them through just kind of the same thing we do with our students, get them familiar with the career, or they meet people in that career, get their questions answered. There's lots of hands-on fun things that they do. It's really reasonable. It's $50 for the week-long session. So if there's anyone listening, or if you know any of any students, please refer them out. Our treasurer, Rob McGuffey, he's put his notice in. He's anticipating retiring this year in December, so we're looking for a new treasurer. And Mr. Seymour can't hear me, so that's good probably. I do have a couple reports in here. Campus enrollment report and the camp for satellite and on campus. Just as some reference points, I've given these to you in the past. You can kind of see which programs are at full capacity. Full capacity is 25. Any number less than that is not full capacity. On the next page, this was not part of our typical board packet at the Great Oaks, but I was curious, how does the Great Oaks really stack up compared to other career tech in the area? Some of that career tech being you have to pay for it. So you might find that information interesting. The Department of Labor statistics, the most current earnings and unemployment rates were published about 3 months ago. I've included that, just kind of interesting data. 4 students are highlighted this month. Destiny Stewart, she is in early childhood education, and she's on placement right now, so she's actually working in the field as a student to gain some experience. Darnell Simpson, digital arts design. He was actually the student of the month for January for the Great Oaks. Grace Kent, early childhood development. She's actually working out at the Great Oaks on her placement. We have a daycare center that we run there at the Great Oaks for some of our students. So she's working there as a placement. And then the last one is Chris McDowell. He competed in a restaurant operation competition, came in first place in dining room service. If any of you happened to go to any of the last luncheon that they had, he was one of the servers. I've included my legislative report. I won't go into it because you've got an executive session this evening as well. I know you've probably all seen the governor's new budget. There's a couple things that really impact career tech, and that's making apprenticeship eligible for college credit. That's a key component that we've lobbied the governor to consider that, and he is considering it. It's actually part of his budget this time. Funding community mentorship programs, which could trickle down to Winton Woods. That's kind of a key component, helping kids find their right careers, and that's really done through mentorship, I believe. My final, one other item, made me think when Jada was up here speaking. Before I left the Winton Woods School Board, I'd had this conversation with Mr. Smith. You know, I'd heard about youth homelessness, and as a school board member, I thought that was really happening in other areas. Until I had some young lady that was a senior about to graduate. She had like 3 months to go, and I find out that she's been breaking into people's cars at night and sleeping in their cars. She was homeless. Boy, that kind of thing doesn't happen in my community, so I was kind of surprised. But I found a host family to assist her. And Jada talking about this is kind of what's bringing this to light. In November, another Winton Woods family, this is a Springfield Township family, I found out that they were homeless. They were living at Winton Woods Park. They have 2 students in our district sleeping in their van at night. I think this is probably more prevalent than we really even know. It's kind of like a hidden secret, or nobody wants to come and say, hey, I lost my job, my wife's got cancer, now I've lost my home, or I've been evicted. I don't know how we address that as a district, but that probably is important. We have the same exact things that occur out at the Great Oaks. We find out about students that, are at the end of the evening, they come back and they sleep in their car on the campus. Security finds them sleeping there. That's not uncommon. I can't tell you how common it is, but it's not that uncommon. I probably hear about it once a month. It's kind of a sad state of affairs when our youth, for whatever reason, are estranged from their parents or run away. They want to finish their education and they have nowhere to sleep. They have nothing to eat. So I applaud Jada for what she's doing. It's probably much closer to home than we realize. I have just a few final comments. Before I decided to consider if I had the necessary skill to become a school board member originally, I sought counsel from a friend and mentor, Judge David Grossman. The judge, as most people had called him, most people called him Judge because he was a juvenile judge. He was actually a school board member here in Winton Woods. And because the internet is not available at these dates, I couldn't verify, but I have a pretty good range. It was from 1967 to 1974. He was a school board member when we were experiencing our large growth, and they were projecting just over 7,000 students in our district. So he was involved in some of the terrible building we did, and I got the teasing about that. And some of the great building that we did. But he had told me how caustic and how hard that was to bring that to the community, because they wanted to build basically all brand new. And it's worked out for us because this board, you all, had to go through the same thing. And I applaud you for that. After I did speak with David to consider, David, do you think I really have the skills to be a school, to try and get on the school board? And he said yes. And that's history. He encouraged me to do it, and I did. I believe David served our community from 1967 to 1974 and was in part responsible for the facility expansion which we needed to accommodate all of our new growth in the community. David was instrumental in creating Hillcrest Academy, It's a juvenile detention center that allowed children to stay close to home to continue their education instead of being sent to a state facility. Many areas of Hamilton County were considered for this facility. Most communities did not want Hillcrest in their backyard. Basically, it was a school for delinquent children. David stepped up, and the facility was actually put in his front yard. He lives in Springfield Township. That facility still exists today at the corner of Waycross and Bonham Road. And that building is in our school district. There's a unique conundrum with that, and Mr. Seymour probably can tell you about that, in that it's in the Winton Woods School District, but some of the tax liability goes to Princeton, and every couple of years Princeton comes and kind of pushes back on our board to say, why are we helping with that? It's in your school district. But it was well thought out by the judge when he had done that. Well, the judge passed away on January the 29th of this year. David's impact on generations of youth is still happening today. I hope that in some way I too impact our youth for generations to come. And with that, I actually put a copy of when he ran in 1969. And I found something kind of interesting, Mr. Seymour. We had roughly 7,000 students then, and the budget in 1969 was $6 million.
And a teacher made 3,000.
Yes. So with that, this concludes my report. Thank you.
One question I had, Tim, I noticed that the 4 students that you had in here, the one is attending the Live Oaks campus, is
Yes.
that right?
Yes.
That's out by Wilmington, right?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
So, but he's a Winton Woods student?
He is a Winton Woods student. Why he chose that campus, I don't know, but
Oh.
that's not unusual.
Okay.
Usually there's an accommodation that's made
Okay.
when a student wants to do that.
Maybe something that they don't have as
Usually there's something very specific about that. For example, if you want to do equine, you're going to be up near Wilmington. You're not going to be down here. If you want to do airplanes and you live up there, you have to come down here for the aircraft program.
Just
I
interested.
have one question. The report from Harry, at the last sentence, only 106 students left Oaks in the first semester as compared to 221 last year. What do you attribute that to?
We attribute to really spending the time with the student on the front end, explaining what the career is all about, having more mentors involved. The Great Oaks, and I've done this, and I still do it today, when students consider the electrical field, they refer those students to me before they actually get in the program. And I invite them over, and they can spend a day with me or spend a day in my shop, or I'll send them out on a job, and we'll put them in a t-shirt and a hard hat so they can see this is what we do. You know, you're going to work when it's raining, it's cold. You're going to use a portalette. I mean, we just tell them, hey, this is the reality. Here's how much money you're going to make when you start. Here's how much money you're going to make in 4 years once you finish school or go through an apprenticeship. Because we don't want to. My company doesn't want to invest in somebody and then they say, I mean, I got to work when it's 0. Well, I think the Great Oaks had engaged so many more mentors to do that in all the programs that now the students, it's kind of a reality check. That doesn't mean that every student that graduates goes into their chosen field, though.
And then the other part of the question is the students that leave, do they go back to their...
They go back to their home district.
Okay.
Yeah, they go back to their home district.
So that was a little reality therapy with the portalettes, right?
It was.
Okay. Yeah, that would have gotten me
It
every
was.
time. Yeah.
And it's not like the portalette at Jungle Gyms.
No, not quite. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move into comments from the board, seeing as we have no motions or recommendations. So, Mr. Birdie, we'll start with you. Any comments from you, sir?
Yeah, I just kind of echoing what Mr. Smith said. It's just great to see students like Jada coming back and giving back to the community, recognizing youth homeless issues. Mrs. Barger and her Lead to Feed program that she's got going on. Those are all great things. I know for information purposes, we had the athletic boosters, the PTA, and the performing arts budgets in front of us tonight, and then to look at the dollars that they generate to help support those programs is phenomenal too. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody involved in those things, as well as always the teachers, the staff, and everyone involved in these kids on a daily basis. We really appreciate what you all do.
Thank you, Mr. Birdie. Dr. Johnson?
I basically had the same thing that I was going to thank for Jada, Mrs. Barger, and the Athletic Association, or the boosters. One other thing that I had was to also thank the Underground for being willing to open its doors to our students to come in and, you know, during that testing time, just to say thank you to them. And that shows good community support, community pride. You're taking pride in the school. You're taking pride in the students that attend here. So to thank them as well. As always, thank the teachers. You know, yeah, and Day Springs. That's right, Day Springs as well. Day Springs Church. So just appreciate the community support that we actually are getting. We feel the love, and it feels good. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Mrs. Kuhn?
I think the board has of one mind many of the things is our partnership and mentorships. And I think that's going to be key to our success is if you're out there, you're watching, if you know somebody and you want to contribute back, please, you're welcome. Your contribution would be most welcome and appreciated. And one other point, I just wanted to bring this up, but from our performing arts, the Evolution, which is one of our lead a cappella groups, they competed in the first round at the International Competition of High School A Cappella, which is sort of the inspiration for the First Pitch, if you've ever seen that movie First Pitch, that type of scenario. And they competed in the Great Lakes region this past weekend, and it was one of the regional competitions. Out of 6 groups, they placed second, which allowed them to come back to compete in the semifinals on March the 18th. And then also I wanted to commend Alexis, well, hopefully I say her name, Weehee, that she had a special award as Best Soloist of the Evening. So I wanted to commend our teachers and faculty who go above and beyond, Mr. Watley and Ms. Miller, for the students taking them and that extra accomplishment, that extra opportunity to go up to Bowling Green University and to compete. Well, that's where they're going to go next, is to Bowling Green, but they're going to have that opportunity to go visit another college campus and have more exposure. And that's all about, is giving our students opportunities to advance and to go into every avenue that they have. We want them every opportunity that they can get. So I wanted to compliment our staff, and that's just one tiny example. And I don't want to leave anybody out, so just send me an email anytime, and we'll put a plug in there for you. Okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Kuhn. Mrs. Ruggless?
I'd like to commend the staff and the administration, Mr. Smith, and the partnerships that are being made. Mr. Martin talked about the Underground, and Dr. Johnson also talked about the Underground, and that is something that's very important, that we find opportunities for our community to give back and touch our students. Had an opportunity to meet with the Mercy group that just moved in across the street, and they're looking, myself and Mr. Smith had an opportunity to meet with them, and we have an upcoming meeting to be scheduled with the president of Mercy to talk about more extended partnerships of how we can connect our students to opportunities as we're doing different things within the district to change and improve opportunities in the academics for students. I appreciate the fact that we're opening up our schools and allowing our community to come in. Today, Dr. Holden took myself along with the SAC, some members of the SAC Student Achievement Committee on learning walks. And every time we get an opportunity to help individuals who have not been in the schools to see the evolution of change and see what's happening, it's a good opportunity to win individuals over and begin to change the language on the street, help them understand where we've been and where we're going. So when Mr. Smith is doing his state of the schools and he's had the theme of where we've been, where we are, where we're going, it becomes more relevant. So I just appreciate the staff. Thank you, Dr. Holden, and your staff for taking us around today.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruggless. I just wanted to say kudos to the elementary school staff, and I appreciate you bringing up the Magus Club. I think it's very, very cool. One thing I wanted to add on to that so people were aware is that Mr. Darks didn't just accept any student into that club. You had to write an essay in order to get into that club. My daughter's one of the fortunate ones to be in that club, and it is a fantastic learning experience for her to start that PBL, because not all of the students in ES this year are in PBL classes, so she's not one of them, so she gets that PBL experience in the Magus Club, which is great. So thank you for shouting out that club. Our students are amazing, and their dedication for extracurricular activities should be highlighted as many opportunities as we can get. Tuesdays are a bear in my house because she has writing club at 7:30 in the morning before elementary school, and then she has reading club after school. So my daughter goes to school from 7 to like 4:30 or 5 on every Tuesday. So it's great, and I think we should, be more focused on that and highlight our students and talk about, that there's so many opportunities in extracurricular activities, and thank you for highlighting that one. And then also, our visioning process is still happening. I want to thank all of the community members, staff, parents who have come out to the first 2 installments. The 3rd installment is this Thursday evening, 5:30 to 8. I know it's a large block of time, but if you haven't been to one yet, we really encourage you to come. It's a great experience, and it gives you an opportunity to have some say and put your ideas out there in some small group sessions of what we want our buildings to look like and where the district is going from here. So thank you for your participation thus far, and I encourage you to bring some friends with you on Thursday night. And with that, I do not see a representative from either the Teachers Association or OPSE. So we do have an executive session need this evening, so.
Madam President?
Yes, sir.
One comment. The launching of the crew will hopefully be soon, hopefully this week.
That's great news.
Yes, and they're going to participate in their first regatta on April 8th. The only thing, I don't care if they come in last, I just want the boat to go straight. If the boat goes straight, I'm totally satisfied.
Tell them the name of the boat.
The name of the boat, the boats will be launched with this special occasion. It won't be champagne, probably be apple juice or something. But the boats are called Opportunities 1 and Opportunities 2, because the kids in those boats have great opportunities to advance. And please do not forget the Night of Freedom, March 22nd at the Freedom Center, and we are very, very excited. So the regatta is April 8th at East Fork Lake.
Okay. Do you have a time on that yet?
Oh, no, I can get the times. That's the other problem.
Okay, anything further from you, Superintendent? Anything from you, Mr. Seymour?
No, thank you, but my hearing is returning.
Okay, so with that, board colleagues, can we entertain a motion to move into executive session?
Yes, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we move into executive session for legal purposes.
I'll second.
It's been motioned and seconded. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Seymour, would you please call that vote?
Sure. I was hearing it. Forgot my roster. I put it away. Dr. Johnson.
Aye.
Mrs. Kuhn.
Aye.
Mrs. Ruggless.
Aye.
Mr. Birdie.
Aye.
Mrs. Miranda.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will now move into executive session. To our wonderful Waycross partners, we will not have any further business after executive session, so you are free to leave the building. Thank you for your service.
So now you can talk to